I was in Tampa last week, and that's what they, I mean, they just, instead of breaking in the front door, they just saw a hole in the, that's happened a couple of times. So, you know, maybe we should think about guns.
Mr. Hagan?
If what we're trying to, are we trying to get past the transparency of a greenhouse, or are we trying to get past the solid wall? Because if we are, then we can talk about the opaqueness of a wall. If we're trying to get past being able to see through a wall on a greenhouse. So, I mean, I don't know if we need to talk about the opaqueness on a wall to kind of get where we're trying to go. That's just my thoughts. I'll throw it out there for discussion.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to get by both the opaqueness issue and the substantiality of it. I mean, I don't want it to be shacks, you know, for lack of a better term, which could have a solid wood wall, but be something that is far less than what we are envisioning in this industrial district, is more in the nature of a warehouse or a true industrial building that has a growing operation inside. That's fine. That's, I mean, we all know implicitly what we think is okay and what's not okay. The problem is trying to define that. And what I don't want to do is have something that is non-substantial. Yeah, I mean, warehouse might be one, but I don't know if there are other types of facilities other than warehouses that also would be appropriate. I mean, someone might have an existing industrial, well, okay, so I'm going to use the example in San Marco. Ben will know this very well, the old Ice House building that became Aardwolf Brewing. It's a brick building. It's not really a warehouse. It was an industrial building. But if someone had wanted to convert that facility and it was in industrial zoning, that would have been an appropriate type of facility. So it's got to be broader than warehouse.
Okay. I have one speaker's card. I'm going to allow the speaker to speak, and maybe we can think about it for a minute or two and come back to it. Mr. Ralph, just state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yes. Christopher Ralph, 3100 University Boulevard South, Jacksonville. Thank you for having me. And Ms. Grandin, you've done a wonderful job on this, I will say. Looking at this whole warehouse question here, the term that was used in Colorado when they originally set up their structure was commercial warehouse. And that was defined as a warehouse that did not have any type of glass entry, doorways or anything along those lines. So commercial warehouse was used at that time. I did have a few other questions here. One is, in looking at the current legislature, and I know what we're trying to do here, and everybody's trying to do, is really get this to where it's focused solely on this law, but prevents other laws, if they are enacted, from really superseding this, if you will. And it's really where my concern comes in, because there are already bills that are sitting waiting for January 1 that are ready to repeal 381.986. There's multiple bills ready to do that. In fact, the one that I have with me here is a bill that was presented by Representative Stubbe that creates a 386.991 and completely repeals 986, which my concern would be all the work that everybody here has done would be nullified at that point, because it slightly changes the definition of low THC cannabis as well. So it's definitely something to look into. Another concern that I had with this, and I brought this up at, I believe, the first workshop that I was at, was on the 2001 Health Freedom Act that was passed that allows doctors to dispense cannabis or cannabis medical products, anyway, to their patients. I am currently aware of numerous physicians in Duval County alone that provide this medicine to their patients through their own medical practice. And one of the things that I would recommend for this committee is to really consider creating some sort of structure or guidelines for physicians that are already doing this under that 2001 law, and of course the 2014 federal law that now authorized it and allowed them to do this in essence. And we were also talking about the you know, how these terms can be construed, the rules, you know, rules of construction with this. You know, of course, as we know in our laws, there's always two sides to every story, and, you know, what's legal, what's not. It really depends on what the interpretation is. And I want to cite the 775.021 rules of construction for any type of law that's created in Florida that states that the provisions of this code and offenses defined by other statutes shall be strictly construed. However, when the language is susceptible of differing constructions, it shall be construed most favorably to the accused. So it's something that we should keep in mind, that when we're creating these regulations and rules, that the laws that are being written right now, as vague as they are, can be really construed in a multitude of ways, and it must benefit the accused per our Florida statute. So again, just something I wanted to make everyone aware of, and we're here to help with any of these issues.
Thank you, and we appreciate all your support and all your help throughout this process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you come back for just a second, please? One quick question. Thank you. And I do appreciate all your help. I think we've come a long way, and we're almost there. The one thing I wanted to ask you is, when you're talking about a physician, is it do they dispense to their patient by prescription? So would it be, would you call it a prescription, or at that point are they just, is it a non-prescription? Because I'm thinking it would have to, since it's a regulated substance, they would have to treat it by prescription.
It gets pretty complicated, but it technically is not a prescription. What it is an order. If you look at the definitions of what a prescription is in Chapter 893, which is where this falls, 893.02, and I believe it's paragraph 15, defines what a prescription is, and it means and includes an order for drugs or medicinal supplies. Now, what an order is simply exactly what it says. It's an order that authorizes somebody to do something or to utilize something, whereas a prescription requires a third party to fill that order. In this instance, it's being dispensed directly by the physician. Therefore, it is only by doctor's order. Similar to a doctor making their rounds in a hospital, they don't prescribe something, they order it. So that's kind of how that would work here. So it follows the same rules, I guess, as prescribing, except for the doctor is the pharmacist at the same time.
So what you're saying is, if we said something like, you know, nothing herein shall preclude a physician licensed within the state of Florida from dispensing or legal cannabis pursuant to a doctor's order.
Right,
from their
pursuant to the
office.
order of a practitioner, which is the exact wording that's in the statute.
Okay, so
Yes.
that we could put something like that in, and that would cover what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Grandin, do you have any objection or concern about including something like that? Then I'd like to offer another amendment to our bill to include that language.
I have a motion by Councilmember Boyer and a second by Councilmember Love. Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? It passes.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Nope, don't see anybody.
Thank you.
So he had the suggestion of a commercial warehouse. I mean, is that with no glass window or door?
Well, just food for thought. If the concern is something like a greenhouse falls under our definition of accessory structure, so if you specified principal structure, that might get us there. Something to consider.
Very good. Very good. So,
And I've got a few other things when you want to get to it.
okay, Mr. Love, do you have something?
I personally think that the commercial warehouse with no windows fits the bill and probably would be what they would put it in anyway.
Okay. So Mr. Love prefers the commercial warehouse with no windows. Does anyone object to that being part of the bill? Okay. So you just put that in there? Okay. Do you have a few things, Mr. Huxford?
There was a question about the parking formula. I think the parking proposal here, which would be the same as, let me change my definitions here. Go back, parking. The proposal was research laboratory parking formula. That parking formula is one space for every 2 employees, plus 1 space for each company vehicle, plus 2 spaces for patron parking. I guess I might be a little bit concerned as far as the dispensing location, because that's where you are going to have customer traffic, as to whether that would really be sufficient. But I don't know enough about the volume of traffic coming into the facility on any given day, if that would be able to accommodate it.
The testimony we received in the past was there wouldn't be much volume, but if you have a suggestion for another use that we could follow, I think anybody here would be open to it.
Well, if it's just going to be a trickle of customers on any given day, that would probably be fine, and because we don't want to create more parking than is truly necessary.
Okay.
But if we're going to have a stampede, that's not going to fit the bill. So,
From what I've heard, there won't be, but, you know,
Okay.
we could always change it if we had to down the road, I guess.
another observation on page 20 of the ordinance, under E, where it says that no dispensing facility shall be within 1 mile of any other dispensing facility. We probably should have a conversation about how that is determined, whether you want the department to try to figure it out, or whether you want them to bring in a special purpose survey or map showing us the other facilities. If we just want an affidavit from them, what kind of verification process do you think we should use? In most cases in the zoning code where we have distance requirements, we ask that the applicant bring us a map showing us.
So, okay. Ms. Grandin suggested that's a good idea. I mean, I can't imagine it would be that much of a problem, but, you know. But, yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Does anybody have any thoughts about that, about the applicant bringing in proof of the distance requirements? Ms. Boyer?
Might I suggest that since there might be so few of these, and they may not be at all close together, that maybe they could bring in, just use your GIS mapping system. And if there is no other facility that according to the GIS scale is within 3 miles, then they don't have to do a specific survey to show that they're outside of the 1 mile. I mean, because typically we make people do a survey for the 1,500 feet for a liquor license or this or that. And I would hate for someone to have to go out and pay for a survey to show there's nothing within 1 mile if there are 4 facilities in Jacksonville and we can plot them on a map and they are a long way away. You know, can't we just acknowledge that?
Well, I think we could work through that, given that we are talking about very few facilities. I just wanted to put that out there as consideration. Normally when we have distance requirements, we ask of some evidence from the applicant to show us what the distance is. But that's not always the case. In the case of Mr. Crescimoni's bill with regard to keeping new daycares from opening up near sexual predator locations, it's actually the department that is responsible for measuring the distance. We don't ask the applicant to do it. We do it. And it is a service we could do. I just wanted to see how you all wanted to carry that out.
So could we maybe add language that survey required upon request of the department? And then Ms. Grandin has something.
If we just had some discretionary opportunity in the event that we couldn't make the call and we wanted them to give us something, it would be helpful.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, on page 20, let's see, no dispensing facility shall be within 1 mile of any other dispensing facility as determined through the GIS maps with the planning department. Something like that. I mean, I would think that...
And I wouldn't necessarily use GIS because the terminology may change in the future. Some other program may get used.
Or just as determined by the department?
Just as determined by the department would be fine. And then if we have to, we can go to that extra measure, and if we can keep it where we don't need the map from them and we can do it, that would be fine.
Okay. Councilmember Boyer?
I would agree with Mr. Huxford's suggestion too, though, that, you know, it be at, you know, that they can, at the request of the department, the applicant can be required to produce evidence of the distance, so that if the department doesn't request it and it's clear, it's not a problem. But that way they at least have the option if they need somebody to go out and get it because it looks like it's real close.
And that will help us out. Obviously, when they come in, they'll have to get a certificate of use, and that would be one of the things that we would want determined. And either we can do it, or if we need that additional information, that would give us the ability to get that from the applicant.
So does anyone on the commission have any thoughts, concerns, questions about that language being added to the bill? Okay. So I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add. Thoughts? So you want to would you like to make a motion?
Okay, so I will move that the committee, LUZ committee,
Yes.
introduce the legislation as Ms. Grandin has proposed it, incorporating all of the amendments that we have made today. and that it be introduced on behalf of each member of the committee.
So I have a motion? Second. I have a second. Any more discussion on the motion? Phil, are we putting this on the ballot? Voice vote? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. I'm sorry, Marshall. I apologize.
I just had one question through the chair to Ms. Boyer. When you talked about the facility and how it's going, did we talk about the byproduct and where it goes? I know we're late into this, but is there an incinerator? Is that part of something on the zoning side that you have to have an incinerator? Has anyone thought of anything of the byproduct that's left over? And one other thing I'd like to add, I don't know how much is going to be produced, but I know as far as like yard waste, we have a CON, a certificate of need. Are we talking also of probably making a certificate of need as far as this, or having other issues like that come up?
That's very good. Do you have any? Well,
Okay. I think the state legislature has spoken and said that they want one of these dispensing organizations in each of the 5 regions of the state. If we had a certificate of need, that would, I don't know, we could talk about this, that would probably put anybody in Duval County at an economic disadvantage if they wanted to do this business here. So, I mean, that's just my thought. I'm not sure why we would do that. There's one facility, so.
go ahead.
Frankly, I'm not sure that we're not preempted. I mean, I think the certificate of need is showing that there is a need to have the dispensing facility in your area, and I think the state has already made the determination that there needs to be one in each area. So I'm not sure there's anything we could review and make a decision on that hasn't already really been taken out of our control, other than location, which we're talking about. Now, to the question about the incinerator, I mean, we did have a presentation last meeting, the meeting before, some meeting, regarding how this was actually produced and the type of, how things were transported, et cetera. Was there any discussion of waste products, byproducts, and how those are disposed of? Does anyone have any recollection of that?
I don't. That's such a great question because we have not discussed that yet. Mr. Do you know Mr. Ralph? Do you have any comments? I'll go right back to you, Susan.
Just state my name again.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Sorry, getting a little used to this here. Typically, again, referring to out west, initially the requirement was to incinerate on site. What companies have started doing now is actually using medical waste companies to be able to take it. And I know, as we spoke about the physicians that provide it, that's what they do, is they use like Sharps containers, things like that, for the residues and that have to be taken away. I know when we're talking large plant material, I don't know if there is a medical waste facility in Florida that can process something that large, but that would be my recommendation, is to work with some sort of waste facility to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you raised a good question, and I would hate to hold the bill up at this point. What I would like to do is maybe research it, and we can add an amendment to the bill once it gets in before Planning Commissioner, before LUZ or what have you. So maybe that's something we can work on. Is that okay with you, Mr. Atkins? Okay. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good, Mr. Chair. We were just going to look up really quickly to see if the Florida Administrative Code already had something in there about how the operation is supposed to do that. But if we need to do an amendment, we certainly can.
If folks here are not comfortable moving forward with this now, I mean, I'm certainly not trying to push it through, but we've talked it to death, it seems like, and I hate to let it go. Councilman Boyer?
I specifically, maybe it was Mr. Loop, but I specifically remember some discussion about incineration because we talked about whether there would be smoke and whether the smoke would have any smell that we would have to be worried about, or whether it would be hallucinogenic. I mean, we went through that whole conversation. So, and I know that the answer was there was not going to be, but I don't remember the specifics of why. So whether we look back in one of our tapes from an earlier meeting, or whether we can figure out who provided that information to us, there was some reason that that was not going to be an issue.
So, are y'all still looking to see if you can find it? Okay, okay. So, I guess at this point, if there's no other conversation, no other discussion, we passed the bill previously already. Any amendments, we would amend either at Planning Commission or at LUZ. So, if there's nothing else to come forward to the workshop, it'll be adjourned. Thank you.